Welcome to the local campaign, and thank you for joining us for our debate today in the riding of Ottawa-Vanier. In just a moment, I'll introduce to you the candidates who are here for the debate, but first I'll explain a little bit about how things are going to work. We will begin with opening statements of 1 minute in length. The order for those opening statements was drawn at random prior to our telecast. Then we'll move into a series of debates about the important issues in this campaign in the riding of Ottawa-Vanier and throughout the country. In each case, I will start the discussion with a question directed to one of the candidates. That candidate will have 45 seconds to respond to the question on his or her own. Then we'll open it up to several minutes of debate for all the candidates to participate in. And at the conclusion of that, we'll go back to the candidate to whom the question was originally directed, and he or she will have 30 seconds to wrap up on that topic. We'll move through a number of different topics that way, fully discuss the issues, and then we'll wrap up with closing statements. And we'll do those in the reverse order of the opening statements. And again, they will be 1 minute in length. So let's begin by introducing the candidates who are here for our debate in the riding of Ottawa-Vanier. First is the NDP candidate, Stéphanie Mercier. From the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada, Christian Leger. From the People's Party of Canada, Paul Durst. Joel Altman is an independent candidate. Joel Bernard is representing the Conservative Party of Canada, and the Green Party candidate is Oriana Ngabirano. Thank you all for being here. Good luck. And we'll begin with the opening statement for Stéphanie Mercier, the NDP candidate. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. First, I want to acknowledge that we are gathered here on traditional non-surrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. As a nurse, I've been a nurse at the Montfort Hospital for 3 years now, and as a nurse, I see how social factors play a huge role in the well-being of people, especially when it comes down to things like housing and food security. And as a law school student, I see how the deck is stacked for those in the society who have been dealt a great hand from birth. I chose to represent the NDP because I firmly believe we need an economy that works for every one of us, not just the top 1%. People across the country are worried about what the future holds. There's flooding, there's forest fires that are threatening our home. We have to transition to a clean energy, carbon-free economy while investing in workers and creating jobs. And we also need to make life more affordable here in Ottawa-Vanier. I'm in it for you. I'm not on the side of big corporations or lobbyists. I think with different choices, we can get better results. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is Christian Leger of the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada. You have 1 minute as well.
My name is Christian Leger, and I am the candidate for the Marxist-Leninist in Ottawa-Vanier because I am convinced that our future is in our fight to defend the right of all. The MLPC pays first-rate attention to the work to organize the people to speak in their own name and provide society with a pro-social aim consistent with the need of our time. It gives priority to the need of the political renewal by calling for the abolition of privileges of the few and that the right of all be provided with a guarantee. The MLPC is the only party that calls on Canadians to use their own voice to discuss the world as is and unite people in action to provide the required solutions.
All right, thank you. Next up from the People's Party of Canada, Paul Durst. Go ahead.
Hello. My name is Paul Durst. I'm a 20-year veteran of the Canadian Forces. I'm a public servant, but most importantly, I'm a dad and father of 5 children. A couple of things woke me up to the issues our country is facing. One is the economic situation. We're spending our kids' inheritances and living high off their futures. I'm not okay with that. The other thing that woke me up was political correctness, particularly identity politics. It woke me up because I served in Bosnia-Herzegovina. I know what happens when we start to focus on the things that divide us. Eventually, neighbor turns against neighbor. The People's Party of Canada stood out to me because it stands for balanced budgets and against identity politics. Those are some of the things that motivate me, and that is the reason why I am supporting the People's Party of Canada in this upcoming election.
All right, thank you. Next is Joel Altman, an independent candidate. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Joel Altman. I am the liberally-minded independent candidate for Ottawa-Vanier, and I'd like to thank everyone who's tuned into this broadcast. I'm originally from Toronto, and I moved to Ottawa in 2009, moved to Ottawa-Vanier in 2012 with my partner. I believe that we are in an environmental crisis right now. I believe in complete transactionless healthcare. I believe in complete transactionless education. But most importantly, in this election, what I am most excited about is accountability. And to that end, I hope to bring the message of the Office of the Federal Ombudsman to people across Canada. It does not exist yet, but 9 out of 10 provinces have one, and it's about time that we got that kind of accountability at the federal level. Thank you.
Okay, next up is the Conservative Party of Canada candidate, Joel Bernard. Go ahead.
Hi, yes, my name is Joel, and I'm your Conservative candidate for Ottawa-Vanier. Since 2006, I've been working on Parliament Hill as a senior policy advisor or a parliamentary advisor. I'm married, I have 2 children, Lillian and Samuel, and married to a beauty from Peterborough. Why am I running in Ottawa-Vanier? Very simple. When you look at how faithful the folks in Vanier have been to the Liberal Party, we've elected the Liberals since 1936 in Vanier, and guess what? We are the most neglected riding in the region. Imagine that. So instead of being rewarded by the Liberal Party, it's being neglected. So this is what I'm doing. I'm running, and I want to bring massive changes to the riding, starting with bringing manufacturing jobs to the riding, jobs that give that work for engineers, blue collars, and technicians. I'm very committed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Finally, from the Green Party of Canada, Oriana Gabirano.
My name is Oriana Gabirano, but don't worry, you won't have to remember that. You just need to remember that I'm number 9 on your ballot. 36 years old, I'm the mom of the 15-year-old daughter. I studied communications, politics, and administration. I'm currently a public relations professional, and I'm standing in front of you today because I believe that most solutions for the problems we face today, we have them. What's been lacking is the political will. What's been destructive to our communities is partisan politics. I can assure you that those who have said that the Green Party is mostly about the environment are right. But what they failed to say is that the environment includes the people. Today, I intend to demonstrate the 6 core values of the Greens around the world. It's participatory democracy, nonviolence, respect for diversity, ecology wisdom, social justice, and last but not least, sustainability beyond me, beyond this election.
That's time. Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for your opening statements. I will mention as well there are other candidates on the ballot who were not able to join us for the debate today, including Mona Fortier, the Liberal candidate, Daniel James McHugh, an independent candidate, Derek Miller from the Rhinoceros Party, and Michelle Paquette from the Communist Party of Canada. So let's begin to debate some of the big issues, and I'll start with a question directed to Stephanie Mercier of the NDP. This is a local issue that directly affects the people of Ottawa-Vanier. Do we need another bridge between Ottawa and Gatineau?
So our issue, we need to get around with things like electrified transit. We need to get around with things like bicycles, walking more active transportation. And the NDP actually has a plan to electrify transit to 2030 in 2030. And this is why our priority is we want to tackle climate crisis while also providing easier ways for people to get around. And when we focus on transit, we actually take people off the road. So this is one of our biggest priority as an NDP government.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on the subject of bridge.
We want the politician to start telling the truth so that we can take an informed decision. In the east, we're hearing about a bridge, but here in Sandy Hill, Lower Town, we're hearing about a tunnel. So we need to have the complete information, and as your MP, this is what I'm going to do. I want to give you the full information so that we can take together an informed decision.
For me, it's very clear. Building a bridge, an interprovincial bridge that would connect Ottawa-Vanier to Gatineau would mostly bring an advantage to the folks in Quebec. So I'm not at all in favor of this. The Liberals have studied it to death for many years. You look at the MP from Gatineau right now, he's on record saying that the Ottawa MPs, the Liberal MPs, are with him in the construction of a bridge that would go through Ottawa-Vanier. Take quiet neighborhoods and make them noisy with Quebec trucks. I'm sorry, I'm not spending any resources or time on that. They want to build it to the west end of Ottawa, I'm okay.
I think sometimes, showing some leadership is just waiting and waiting for the right solution to come up. One of the things that may be needed here, and if I'm elected, I will certainly put in place the idea of having town hall meetings so that the different parts of our town can get together and give their voice on what they want as far as their transportation and the need for interprovincial bridge or tunnel over to Quebec. So I would look at it from the perspective of the people. The People's Party will listen always to the voice of the people. Instituting town halls on a regular basis to hear such issues as transportation, as bridges, is important to me. I will also, have a direct line with the mayor if he needs that, but he'll have to know that we will be, from the federal level, will be demonstrating some leadership, and if he wants to have some cooperation from us, it'll have to be a very collaborative undergoing, and he'll have to kind of accept some of the things that we would propose based on the voice of the people in Ottawa-Vanier.
Well, I think that the issue of this bridge or tunnel is simply who decides. In this issue, the people have no say till now. If you want to build a link, a bridge, we have to consult first the First Nation, Quebec people, and the people of Ottawa. It does not have to be left to some other to take the decision or to discuss it. What we are seeing is that the transportation there is a problem there. But to reduce it, it should be used by train, bus, or any transportation mean which is paid by the people, by the enterprise who use the workforce. It should not be paid by the people, and the revenue of the state should be used for that.
Okay. Anyone else want
Yeah,
to?
could I just add in too that I believe, this is transportation is mainly a provincial issue. So we would certainly look at this as within the provincial jurisdiction, and then work collaboratively with others and allowing the voice of the people of Ottawa-Vanier to be heard when it comes to some of those things. I would advocate on behalf of the people of Ottawa-Vanier.
I think that's an issue that's very important, and it's good to remember that the people say what is good. They know what is good for their community, and we're seeing the exact same issue with SOS Vanier that Joël mentioned earlier. But it's going back to the well-being. That's how you measure if you're doing great. If you measure the well-being of people, then you're probably doing great. And right now what we're seeing in Ottawa is things that are being imposed to communities.
I'm hopeful that we can have a bridge, but I'm only going to support it if it's got an LRT on it. I am from Toronto. I've seen the failure of trying to intensify the amount of vehicles that are in any one given area. I don't want to see that happen to Ottawa at all, and I think it'll encourage better habits in transportation, being able to take easy transit across the river.
I've been knocking on doors for over 4 months, and I can tell you that the great majority of folks in Ottawa-Vanier do not want the bridge. So I'm running for the job to represent them in Parliament. So what am I going to do? Work against them? Of course not. You're taking quiet neighborhoods. This is the idea, taking quiet neighborhoods and making them noisy with Quebec trucks. I'm sorry, it's a non-starter for me.
And I would say that the priority right now is really having that information being clear, because the mayor has also said publicly that he would not open that conversation again. So that conversation keeps coming back, but we don't know the source and the facts that are attached to that.
Okay. Stephanie Mercier, you have the final 30 seconds on this.
Thank you. And yes, I think as a local MP, it's very important to listen to the people of your community and doing what's right. I do hear at the door that people are worried about the traffic and things like that. So I think one of the things that we can do is move towards electrified transit, make sure that we try to remove some of the vehicles off the streets. That way we diminish traffic, and we also tackle climate crisis at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for Christian Leger of the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada. Should cities have the authority to ban handguns?
You mean handguns from the police? Yes.
Go ahead,
Yes.
it's your topic.
They should have the authority because the issue is who control those handguns, and it's certainly not the people. There is already enough restriction on this issue that the answer to handgun is not law and order measure.
Okay, it's open to everyone, specifically on that question, but also on the broader issue of fighting gun violence and gang violence in our community.
I think it's a specific issue that we need to talk. When we're talking about that, it's collaboration, and there's different solutions to that. Why I'm saying it's collaborative, because we don't want a situation like in the US where the rules change depending on the states you're in, on the city you're in. So we don't want that situation here. What we need is to address crime as a health issue, a public health issue. Those are preventive measures, and it's putting funds back to social services. We shouldn't be fighting here, even at the city or at a national level, for funds for mental health, funds for housing. That is the core issue of that. It's poverty. And with the Green Party, what we want to put forward is the guaranteed livable income. And that will help people actually not resort to desperate measures, which crime is one of them.
I wish Mona Fortier was here to speak on this, but she's not. I'm not sure why, because it is an important issue. Mona Fortier and Justin Trudeau know very well that crimes are committed by gangs and organized crime, whether it's illegal guns coming across the border or gangs in the streets. This is window dressing by the Liberals. We're going to ban handguns. Well, guess what? Criminals, it's their job not to obey the law. How many laws do you want to put in place? And at what point do you think that criminals will say, well, you know, I have a change of heart today, I'm going to turn in my gun? That's not going to happen. That's organized crime and gangs. They don't do that. So the only people that are penalized are farmers, sports persons, and collectors. So again, it's window dressing by the Liberals. It shows really well during a campaign because they give the impression they're fighting crime. We're going after gangs, we're going after illegal guns, and we're going to resource the police more appropriately to do their job.
No one is born a criminal. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the biggest criminals here are not the one you see on the streets. They're the one at the top of corporation. They're the one also in back doors dealing things for SNC-Lavalin. They are the real criminals. Let's stop punitive measures to people that are striving to find opportunities and give social services to them.
Banning handguns from many cities is going to be as successful as banning cocaine or marijuana or any other number of drugs that are already illegal in these cities has been over the past history of Canada. We really have to look at this from a different angle. I do agree with my Green Party colleague here. It's a question of poverty, lack of opportunity, education, and a weak mental health support system. Until we address those issues, you can tape a gun to a bag of coke and send it over the border one way or another.
I'm a gun owner, and I think that guns are private property. And so what do you intend to do if you're going to ban handguns? You're going to take away people's private property, and that's going to be another whole discussion. So I think that the people that own handguns or rifles for recreational purposes, for hunting, and they possess them and they have them legally, they're the safest people out there with guns, so why would you take that away from them? What we do need to do is concentrate on the illegal guns and illegal weapons that are coming into this country and coming into our societies and communities. And those we need to take a strong stance on to prevent harm from happening to our citizens. There are other ways, other than banning legally owned private property handguns, than banning them. There are other ways to lower crime in our communities.
Let's be honest, I don't think if you live in Ottawa you really need a gun, but what Joel said was, and Oriana said was right. It's not just about addressing the crime, it's about addressing the root cause of the crime. And when we look at statistics, we see that crime rate and poverty rate are directly linked. So it's about making life more affordable for the people in Vanier. It's about giving resources like mental health resources, making sure universal pharmacare is in place so that people can afford medication and a roof on top of their head. And when we give these needs and when we give resources, we actually address the root cause of the crime, which is the real problem here.
Look, I spend a lot of time around guns in the military, and I know how harmful they can be. And this is a legitimate concern that we have in our communities to try to reduce the types of crimes that are committed with illegal weapons. But to take that a step further to ban legally possessed handguns is not right. And the goalposts keep changing for recreational gun owners. Like one time they're allowed to have them, then they can't. The legislation, once they possess them, they should be allowed to have them, and we should not continually change the regulations. So people are continually trying to figure out what it is that they have to possess, when their licenses expire, and all those other things that could cause them to, by just a lapse in their licenses, they who are legal gun owners, to have to be in in a crime because they haven't updated their licenses. So I think there are some things that we should be very careful about when we go down this direction.
Even the police chief of Toronto has denied that this would work.
That's time. Thank you. Let's go back to Christian Leger, who I asked the question to. So you have 30 seconds to wrap up on this topic.
Well, I think that it's a diversion from the real problems. Violence is blamed on the people without addressing to the root problem. Violence does not come from the community, it does not come from the people. So the state is responsible for that. And as I said, law and order measures are not simply not the solution.
Next, a question for Paul Durst, the People's Party of Canada candidate. Your leader has said that he is opposed to mass immigration to Canada. Is he trying to tap into an anti-immigrant populist sentiment in this country with that message?
No, absolutely not. First of all, I'm an immigrant myself. I got my Canadian citizenship when I was 17 and I joined the Army. I'm not against immigration, nor is Mr. Bernier, nor is the People's Party of Canada. The Trudeau government wants to bring in 350,000 immigrants every year. All the People's Party of Canada is saying is let's bring down those numbers and limit the immigration of new Canadians to pre-2015 numbers, and that's between 100 and 150,000 people. That way, those that come in here can be mainly the economic immigrants, properly vetted, so that they come in, have a job, bring in their experience, education, and skills, and work. And they are fulfilled. Also, it's a win-win for Canada because it adds to our production.
Okay. It's open to everyone now on this topic.
Immigration, I think, is a great indicator of where we are as a society, and I think all things being equal, we want the best immigrants to Canada, but the fact of the matter is there are still ongoing genocides around the world. People are being persecuted. We have a great luxury with the amount of land we have here. We are a quite wealthy country. I don't mean to throw around that wealth in any way, but sometimes we just have to be a safe harbor for how terrible the world can be, and there has to be more than just what someone's credentials are on their resume, where they went to school, or how best if they're going to contribute the most to our economy or not. We have to look at people as human beings, and there's some of the plans that are proposed for immigration. I don't see that, and I can't support that.
You have Canada, there's no political party here that will deny that Canada needs immigrants. There's no doubt about that. There's so many jobs that are unfilled in Canada just for that reason alone. And then, of course, refugees are a different story. It's a different, but one thing is for sure. Part of my job, I'm a parliamentary advisor. Part of my job is to listen to question period every day. And Justin Trudeau, shame on him for calling anyone who dares question his policies on immigration, he calls them racist. Are we not allowed to have a discussion about immigration? You have people who want to come to Canada, they play by the rules. They fill out the forms, they pay the fees, they wait patiently for the green light to come to Canada. Once they're here, for many of them, the next step is to sponsor a family member. These people are the ones that should have the priority, but they are very frustrated because their files are put on hold because Justin Trudeau has lost control of the borders. We have to regain that control at the border and deal with the cheats and honor those who play by the rules. So we need immigrants, and we need to take care of the real refugees, not the ones that fly in from New York City.
I think what's important to say here is we need to stop those fear-mongering politics and also those marketing politics. You have the right doing fear-mongering, and you have the liberals doing marketing politics to everyone, saying, come in, we have you, we got you covered. But the reality is people arrive here and they're not integrated. They don't have any services. We don't offer a language training, which is a basic when you want people to have opportunities. I think that's what's failed. We're a welcoming country, and I think we should remain a welcoming country, but we need to invest in integration, and we need to invest in education and giving those people that opportunity so that we can, as a community, thrive together.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because two items that we are pursuing is family reunification. That's what we are going to be focused on. And also, as you were saying, the integration of these new people to Canada. Right now, they can't even get French or English training, language training. And this was a promise from Justin Trudeau, and they claimed they would keep it, and of course they did not. So the folks in Ottawa-Vanier, lots of new Canadians, and they need our help to settle in, and the help is not there. We're going to focus on that.
Joël, you were on TV the other day, Radio-Canada, you were speaking about that subject on integration, and someone that was there, someone from the community, someone who's very involved, who's doing a lot of volunteer work, was there and asked a question, I've been there for 3 years, I don't get a job. The only opportunities I get are volunteering opportunities. So what are we saying, especially in a riding like Ottawa-Vanier, where it's been liberal for so long? What can you possibly answer to that person? What have you done? Those people haven't done anything. And I'm not actually asking the question to you, Joël, because you were not in power at that moment.
I'll tell you one thing for sure is our goal is to bring real jobs in Ottawa-Vanier, and I've said that very clearly. Right now, if you want a minimum wage job in Ottawa-Vanier, no problem, all kinds. But you cannot get a mortgage with that. And my commitment to Ottawa-Vanier is to bring manufacturing to the riding. People say it can't be done, but guess what? It's happening in Southern Ontario, and it's happening in Quebec. And why in the world that since 1936, the folks in Ottawa-Vanier have been supporting the Liberals, and they're the most neglected? Why is that? There's no good reason, and I'm asking you for the chance to bring true representation to Ottawa-Vanier.
True representation will come from someone from Ottawa-Vanier that breathes the air of Ottawa-Vanier on a daily basis. I live in Vanier. I live behind what we call the SOS Vanier bar. So I live and breathe that. So if we're talking about representation here, the person at this table that represents the best Ottawa-Vanier is Oriana Gabriano.
When you choose a doctor, you don't choose a doctor because they're your neighbor. You choose a doctor because it's the best doctor.
Okay, we can stop there. I asked you the question, Paul Durst, so you get the final 30 seconds to wrap up on this topic.
Okay, thank you. You know, going door to door, I hear from Ottawa-Vanier residents who have said charity begins at home. And as a father of 5, I strongly support that concept. In fact, according to an Angus Reid poll, 49% of Canadians think the 2018 target of 310,000 immigrants is too high. What Justin Trudeau's plan will bring with 350,000 immigrants a year is within 3 years the equivalent of the population of the city of Ottawa coming to Canada every 3 years, and we cannot support that.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to the next question now, which I will direct to independent candidate Joel Altman. Let's talk about the country's finances. It seems as though we are no longer in an era where political parties have to promise to balance the books or have a plan to do so. How much debt is a safe amount of debt, in your opinion? I know you won't be in charge of the budget, even if you're elected as an independent MP, but what do you think about the issue of deficits and debt?
Thank you, Mark. And I'm sorry I won't be forming the Altman government, but with whatever government I do have an opportunity to work with, I am hopeful we are going to legislate deficits right out of Canada. Let's make it so you need a super majority in Parliament before you get approved to take on debt. Enough is enough. We have the legislature right there. There's no reason we can't do this. And again, I appreciate emergencies. I know right after 9/11, we took on a lot of funding issues in terms of just supporting our military, and there wasn't a lot of decision making before we had to authorize that. But other places, let's just get all parties on board. If you're going to go into debt, you go out there and convince the other parties that you're going to take on that debt, and they'll support you, or you're not taking on the debt.
Okay, it's open to everyone on this topic now.
So basically, Justin Trudeau said that he would help the middle class. Right now, 80% of the middle class pay more, of Canadians pay more taxes. We are in a good economy right now. It's an international economy. Things are going well. And Justin Trudeau is spending money like as if we're in a recession. And, you know, people say, oh, well, the Conservatives are going to cut. Well, yeah, there's some places we are going to cut. For example, did you know that Justin Trudeau bought his chef to India on a trip, $17,000? Did you also know that he bought a red leather sofa at the cost of $155,000? Did you also know that he bought a giant rubber duck for $200,000? I couldn't go on. But the deal is that Justin Trudeau is running this country like someone would run a frat house. This is Canada. We are a G7 country. We need somebody serious at the helm. And this guy here, when I knock on doors, people are telling me this guy's got to go to retirement. I keep hearing that all the time. People are frustrated. And on the 21st of October, they're going to vote accordingly.
Yes, definitely. We intend to, as the Green Party, we intend to balance the federal budget by 2024, 2025. We propose changes in revenue and costs which should reduce the federal budget deficit to zero in 5 years. So our platform is the most transparent platform. You can find it online. It has been costed as well. And the measures we're putting forward, we have numbers for that, especially the guaranteed livable income. Did you know that in Ontario only, 38 billion is what we lose in opportunity every year. We cannot afford to lose that money. We need to invest that so that people can thrive in this Ottawa-Vanier.
Well, debt and deficit are vary according to the scheme to pay the rich. If that having a deficit suits them, it will go. If having austerity and a balanced budget, that's what the bourgeoisie will choose. As far as the debt, I think that there should be a moratorium on the debt, simply. Because what is it is a value produced by the worker, which is used to finance the rich. And it's not taken out of the economy, and it's not put back. So all the scheme to pay the rich should be stopped and should be invest in the social program and in the public services.
As I said in my opening statement, today's deficits are really going to burden our children and our future generations with taxes. So something needs to change now, and the PPC has a plan. The only party that has a plan to balance the budget in 2 years. And we will do that by eliminating corporate welfare to the tune of about $5 to $10 billion per year. We will cut foreign aid, except for those humanitarian emergencies. And we'll cut funding to the CBC, which was almost to the tune of about $1 billion this year. In that way, we will balance the budget in 2 years. And after that, we'll start to lower taxes, income tax level of all Canadians, so that all Canadians have more. And my other colleagues here have mentioned the prosperity that Canada's having right now. We are a prosperous Canada, probably prospering more than we ever have. But that money is not staying in Canadians' pockets. So the idea would be to start lowering income taxes with the basic exemption of to $15,000. So no one pays any income tax below that $15,000, which is so important for many people in the Ottawa-Vanier riding who do not have high incomes. And anybody making between $15,000 and $100,000 would pay 15%. That would be a flat rate. It simplifies. So we'll simplify the tax season, lower taxes so that all Canadians have more money in their pocket. And that they will feel the benefits of our prosperity.
May I ask how you can explain that someone that makes 15,000 is taxed the same percentage as someone who makes 100,000?
Well, that's the way
15,000, it's still under the poverty line.
So the way the system works now, we're actually raising the basic exemption level to 15,000 from what it currently is. So you have to do these things in steps, and if we can do more in the future, we will do more. But the first step is to balance that budget in 2 years and start getting. The question talked about deficits, large deficits. People think that we can have a large deficit and the gross domestic product to deficit ratio is a suitable way to measure things. Canada could be a real leader among the G7 and G20 nations by going forward with balancing the budget, moving into surplus, paying down the deficit, and showing that it's better to do that, especially when some type of economic recession hits our country, which we always need to be prepared for. So this is something that I consider because I think about my children. And I think about my son that just moved back into our home because he...
All right, that's time. Thank you. Joel Altman, I asked you the question, so we'll go back to you for the final 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mark. A lot of this sounds pretty complicated. I still feel pretty confident that we should make it illegal to run a deficit without a huge majority in the House of Commons approving it. Oftentimes we see overspending on things as silly as, I guess, pipeline purchases. I'm not against the pipeline necessarily, but I'm certainly against us purchasing it. Previously, the Harper government spent about $1 billion on a hot tub party in Muskoka. I haven't forgotten that. So when it comes to where we're spending money, I'd like to be a lot more careful.
Okay, thank you. I will now ask a question of Joel Bernard, the Conservative Party candidate. You've talked a couple of times already about bringing jobs to Ottawa-Vanier. That's an easy thing to say, but how would you actually do it? How would you bring, in particular, manufacturing jobs to the riding?
Excellent question. Thank you very much. So first of all, I used to work at Industry Canada. I used to be a senior policy advisor there for the minister. And a lot of foreign companies who want to bid on Canadian contracts need to have a foot on the ground in Canada. And so what they do is they come to Canada, they invest sometimes 25 million, sometimes a couple $100 million, and they set up shop here in Canada so that they are able to apply for these contracts. So why not have them come to Ottawa-Vanier? I've seen a lot of these jobs go to Southern Ontario, and that means that the MP there is working hard because it just doesn't happen by itself. I saw a lot go to Quebec. So why not Ottawa-Vanier? That's how I would do it.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on jobs in the economy. Go ahead.
I think we can go for, we're always talking broad when we're talking about jobs and economy, and there is something very local. There's a lot of stores that are empty in Ottawa-Vanier. There's also a way that we finance organization that is unfair. I'll give you an example. We have this store on Montreal Road that is selling reusable items and that is also selling used clothes, secondhand radios, secondhand phones. That store doesn't get a tax credit. That store doesn't get help, support, but you have next door Salvation Army, who is doing exactly the same. It's a big corporation, and it's a big charity, let's say, and they're actually getting funds from the government. Why don't we support local entrepreneurs? And that's what I want to see.
I think we have a big crisis right now, and that's a climate crisis. And one of the big and best ways to have more jobs and create more jobs in our country is actually to tackle climate crisis while using the transition to create 300,000 jobs. And that's exactly what the NDP is doing. We want to build 500,000 units of affordable housing. That's going to create a lot of jobs. The transition, we're going to also offer training and retraining for these people so they are not let down during the transition. So I think the NDP has a very bold plan to fight climate crisis, but it's the only plan that also keeps our workers at the heart of our work. And I think this is one of the plans that will work.
The Liberals and the NDP are the one and the same. You look at Justin Trudeau, who bought a pipeline for almost $5 billion, where the industry was willing to buy it. And then you have the NDP who would like to tax you to death to stimulate the economy. So what we're saying is that if you allow the private sector to do their job, just get the government out of their way, they will create jobs that are more than $15 an hour. Jobs that you can pay a mortgage.
We don't
with.
have a wealth
You
problem in
cannot pay
Canada. We have a wealth
working
distribution
in a coffee
problem.
shop.
And so if we tax the wealthiest people who make over 20 million of wealth, we actually have plenty of money that in the next 10 years, that's $70 billion. It's enough for services that we need, and it's enough to invest in things like a climate change
It's proven
transition.
that the middle class is always the one paying for taxes. It's not the $20 million peak
and the Liberals
salary
have
she's
made the
talking
system
about.
so the economy works better for the top 1% instead of the rest of us. This is why it's always like that.
Solutions, and
People want jobs.
they
People
want
want
solutions.
jobs.
When we're here at the table, they're looking to hear solution, and one of them is to invest in our youth incubators. This is what we're not investing right now. The people that are going to run this country tomorrow, we should be investing in them right now. And to have those innovation hubs for them to be able to create their own jobs based on their passion, I think this is something we need to start doing right now, because we're not doing that.
I agree with that if the private sector is involved.
I think that is the issue as it was put, people want job, is total disinformation, because people have no say on the issue of job. They cannot speak on their own name, and what they want, what is needed is a new direction of the economy that upholds public rights, not monopoly rights. Sovereign decision-making over the economy has to be restored, and manufacturing made a priority, not what we have actually, which is simply wrecking of all what exists. Sell out of the natural resources. So that's the issue. Change the orientation of the economy, put that in the hand of the people, in the hand of the workers, and you are going to have a solution. But right now, all kind of disinformation is spread, and at such rapidity that people do not have the time to think and to study the problem. All kind of policy objective are thrown at us.
What I believe is that Canadians need good jobs. That is, they need to know that, so a student going to school, high school now, should know that what types of jobs are going to be available in the future. And we should be able to help give some direction to that. But really, it's not the government that creates jobs, it's the private sector that creates jobs. So we need to create the conditions for the private sector to be able to have investments in their businesses, whatever that is. We're a very high-tech country. Technology is one of the ways we need to go. We should be thinking about artificial intelligence and automation. But just so you know, Canada's combined federal provincial corporate income tax rate is the 12th highest amongst the 36 OECD countries. I think we can do better there by making it more financially viable for people to invest in Canada.
All right, that's time. We'll go back to Joel Bernard. You have the final 30 seconds on this.
Look, I think that the private sector, again, going back to the pipeline, the private sector was willing to buy that pipeline, but Justin Trudeau took your tax dollars to go and buy it. Now it's sitting there, and he put all kinds of rules in place to stop investment from the private sector. So we want to pay for health care, we want to pay for schools and roads, and you got Justin Trudeau blocking investment from coming into Canada. Don't take my word for it. Just look at the media, and there's so many stories of what Justin Trudeau has done.
All right, thank you. Finally now, a question for Oriana Gabirano, who is the Green Party candidate. We have heard over and over again and seen in one poll after another that healthcare is either the top priority or very close to the top priority for Canadians. Yet we don't hear a lot about healthcare during this election campaign. So what specifically would you and your party do to improve the healthcare system for Canadians?
Okay, the first thing we want to do is increase the services that people get. So we want to make sure that people have access to healthcare no matter where they are, and access to mental health. I give this example. Vanier used to be a neighborhood that needed a lot of social services. And what happened is the social services came in, but they didn't expand throughout the city as the needs were there. What we're seeing in Vanier is every time someone needs care, they have to move to Vanier to get that option. And we're also seeing that in the north, in the country, it's not equal. So we need to decentralize the care that the investment that we're putting in healthcare.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on the subject of healthcare. This includes pharmacare, dental care, whatever is part of the platform of your party.
And I think universal pharmacare is essential. I've been a nurse at the Montfort Hospital for 3 years now, and I've seen patients come in a diabetic ketoacidosis state because they've been omitting insulin doses, because it costs thousands and thousands of dollars a year for someone who's not insured. And so universal pharmacare is not only essential, it saves lives. And we know that a healthy population is good for the economy in the long run. We also need to give people mental health resources. If I'm covered head to toe, there's no way why my head is not covered. Dental health care is also one of the big ones. We know as a healthcare professional, dental care is directly related to cardiomyopathy. So it's something that's very serious, and it's something that everyone should be covered on.
Our government has made a confirmed, and my leader sent a letter to the premiers to confirm that we will keep the Canada Health transfers and the Canada Social transfers increase by at least 3% per year, and we're going to maintain the formula as well. So we have a commitment there, but again, at the end of the day, when the economy is strong, there's more revenue for the government. Folks need to pay less taxes, and that's when we can afford to pay for healthcare, roads, and seniors, and what have you. So, yes, we have commitments. We will maintain the funding, and we will increase it 3% per year, but we need a strong economy, and we need a government that stops spending like it's Friday all the time.
Well, healthcare is a human right. It's not an issue of money. And that's what the problem. If you deal with healthcare and other issues like that as an issue of money, you cannot solve the problem. Years of austerity have been damaging the healthcare system, really. So you should invest in the social program, and also the privatization of healthcare should be stopped. We should not be at the mercy of those big companies which make money from the sufferance of the people.
My dear sir, you said that it's not a question of money,
Yes.
but nurses need pay
of right.
increases, and hospitals need money, and you just talked about investment. So what are we investing if it's not money?
Sorry?
You said that it was not about money, but you said that we have to invest, and I agree with you, but you just said it wasn't about money. So it is about money, it's about taxpayers.
If healthcare was reestablished, the investment was reestablished to the level before 10 years ago, it should be already a progress. But the way it's treated is that it's an issue of money, not an issue of rights. And rights belong to the people because of they are human, and you cannot transgress that.
Well, I agree. I think that everybody can agree that healthcare isn't working for everyone. Right now, the federal government interferes in provincial healthcare through the conditions it sets in the Canada Health Act. The PPC believes that there are really, you can say, too many cooks in the kitchen. And it's that kind of like those famous words, I'm here from Ottawa and I'm here to help. And that just doesn't, really healthcare is a provincial matter. There are some transfer payments. So in practical terms, what the PPC wants to do, it will mean that Ottawa will give up the the GST, which accounts for about $40 billion annually, which is equivalent to the health transfer payments, to let provinces and territories collect within that money, that tax money within their funding area, and then fund health care themselves, keeping Ottawa out of it so that there's less interference, more clarity, and more responsibility. One of the values of the People's Party of Canada is responsibility. The provinces need to be held responsible and can't just say when there's a healthcare issue, oh, Ottawa hasn't helped us, they haven't transferred us enough money. So I believe that this really has to be put back into the province's jurisdiction and let them handle it. Let them be innovative then. Let them use as much of the skills and the tools that they have at that level to come up with good solutions to provide that health care. And we'll help to set the conditions again for that by giving them that GST space. At the same time, helping some of the territories and provinces that aren't as strong with help until they can get up to a certain standard and level of health care.
Paul, I hate to disagree with you on any point because I like you a lot. When it comes to healthcare, though, I think we have a bit of a disagreement because I believe that solutions in healthcare can come from all levels of government, and sometimes we put a little bit too emphasis on constitutional divide of powers instead of just getting things done for Canadians. I believe in complete and transactionalist healthcare, for the record. That's dental, that's mental, that's general physical health, and of course pharmaceutical coverage. And I believe that no one, but specifically, I guess, no Canadian, should fear for want of health care anywhere in the world. I will support any responsible legislation that brings us closer to that goal, even if it's not necessarily in line with how we feel about constitutional responsibility.
All right, thank you, Oriana Gabriano. We asked you the question originally, so you get the final 30 seconds on healthcare.
Universal pharmacare is something that we put forward in our platform. We're also putting forward a national strategy for seniors, as that includes a national strategy for dementia. We also want to amend the medical assistant in dying legislation to allow advance directive and living wills.
Okay. Thank you, candidates, for those lively debates about the important topics that we covered. We're now going to move to the closing statements. Again, the order for this was drawn at random before our telecast. We're going to do them in the reverse order of the opening statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute to speak to you, the voters. And we will begin with Oriana Gabriano of the Green Party of Canada. Go ahead.
So I want to tell you what a green economy looks like. A green economy measures well-being as a sign of progress. It rejects the consumer's society values. It is powered by renewable energy, and it is a zero waste generation. It assures local food security, guaranteed livable income, universal health care, pharmacare, daycare, free post-secondary education, and universal system for daycare. Protects minority from discriminations, ensures gender equality, builds resilience, and ensures fair taxation. What I'm telling you today is that when you go and you see your ballot, there's no party. The only party is the people of Ottawa-Vanier. And when you go vote for yourself. It's the name number 9 on the ballot, name Oriana Gabriano under the Green Party.
All right, thank you. Next is Joel Bernard, the Conservative Party candidate. Go ahead.
Today we discussed a lot of issues that are at the national level and some local. But my message to you, I'm not a very complicated guy, and I want to be direct with you tonight. Again, as I said earlier, Ottawa-Vanier has been Liberal since 1936. You should have been rewarded massively for your faithfulness to the party. It's been Liberal at the federal level, provincial level, and municipal level. And if you look around, and some of you know what's happening in there's economic development happening in other parts of the region, but Ottawa-Vanier is neglected. What I'm asking you is if you're not satisfied, as I am, with what's happening in Ottawa-Vanier, the abuse from the mayor when it comes to putting a shelter that the folks do not want, the abuse from the government, federal government, who keeps bringing up this bridge issue in Ottawa-Vanier, if you're tired of these things and you want true representation, give me a chance to show you how hard I can work for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joel Altman is next, an independent candidate. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for watching today. I'd just like to go over my platform once again. I believe that we are in a climate crisis. I believe that we should have some of the best healthcare in the world, and it should cover dental, mental, pharmaceuticals. I believe that we should have, everyone in Canada should have access to education responsibly. If you just want to go for a good time to university, I think maybe pay out of your own pocket. I believe in electoral reform and the digital democracy. But what I believe most is that whoever makes the next government, there's going to be a lot of corruption and graft, and things are going to go wrong. And without the office of the federal ombudsman, we're asking for the same cycle of abuse to happen time and time and time again. And when it comes to costing, I might add that ombudspersons throughout Canada and the world are very good at identifying waste and savings, and we can use a lot of that money towards actual important programming. I think recently, even in Toronto, the Toronto ombudsperson was able to see that they're spending 2 to 3 times as much on road work as they ought to be, and that's huge savings.
That's time. Thank you. It's, we're in the closing statements now, so it's one at a time, please. No other candidates should be speaking. Let's move to Paul Durst from the People's Party of Canada. You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody that's been paying attention to this debate, because I think it's very important to discuss these matters. Many of my colleagues have spoken about new programs and funding. I just want to remind people that that is coming out of our pockets. Every time they speak of a new program, that's paid out of the taxpayer's pocket. A lot of Canadians seek a government that will be looking out for their best interests. However, consecutive Liberal and Conservative governments have eroded that trust and made many feel that the government does not look after them. Many feel their speech is silenced, and only large corporations are benefiting from economic growth. A PPC government will restore that trust and give Canadians hope that their voices will be heard. Individual freedom, personal responsibility, fairness, and respect. These values unite Canadians and are a higher principle than identity politics. Join the fastest growing party in Canadian history. Vote PPC.
All right, thank you. Next up is Christian Leger, who is representing the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada. Go ahead.
The MLPC is the only party that calls on Canadians to use their own voice to discuss the world as is and unite people in action to provide the required solutions. We are calling for a modern Canada that defends the right of all, humanize the natural and social environment, and empower yourself now. A lot of issues have not been discussed today, like make Canada a zone for peace and guarantee the right to all to healthcare, education, livelihood, pension, senior care, child care. So I would like you to go to the website of the MLPC at mlpc.ca. In conclusion, we call on the people to vote Marxist-Leninist for democratic renewal. If you cannot vote for the small parties or for the independent candidate, do not vote.
Okay, thank you. That's time. Finally, Stéphanie Mercier, who is the NDP candidate. Go ahead.
Thank you, and first of all, a big thank you to Rogers TV for having us at this debate. It's been a great discussion, and a big thank you to my fellow candidates for showing up today and having this great discussion. When I was a child, they told me I would never be good enough to play varsity sports, so I played 2. And they told me I'd never be able to go to a national championship. So my team did, and we medaled. I've been told that Ottawa-Vanier is a safe seat, but I've been known to defy the odds. It's easy to sit up and take notice. What's hard is getting up and taking action. But I believe I have the courage it takes to do politics differently. Because after decades of the same representation right here in Ottawa-Vanier, we have to ask ourselves, who are the Liberals working for? Every day, someone has to choose between paying for rent, housing, food, or medicine. We are in desperate need of change, and I believe I am the one person that can fight for this change. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, candidates, and best of luck to you in the rest of the campaign. Thank you for being here. I want to remind you that Election Day is October the 21st. There are also advance polls that are open on the Thanksgiving Day weekend, and you'll be able to join us on Rogers TV and on 1310 News for live coverage of the election results on October the 21st. Our coverage begins at 9 o'clock. I hope you can join us then. Thank you for watching.